Hey there everybody, Eric from OUTER LIMITLESS coming at you today with another video. So I'm sitting here chilling out, hanging out with my Work Tuff Gear Nomad. Now there's always a problem when you hang out with your gear, you just want to use it. But it's not really a good time for me to get out and play, so I thought what I'd do today is a little bit of a mod. No, I am not gonna mod this knife, but I am going to mod the sheath. Now, if you look back at a prior video, you heard me and Joe from Survival Attitude talking about using this Nomad stock Kydex sheath from Work Tuff Gear in a Baldric cross-draw style carry. You know, the one thing that we were talking about too is converting this into a Baldric style carry. So if we could potentially modify this plate a little bit to get it into that vertical orientation, utilize some of these holes in the rivets that are already there to get your sort of shoulder strap on there. This thing is badass, man. I mean, the ability to really carry this with a nice quality carry over your shoulder. It's not going to overly weigh you down. Yeah. Nice and convenient, and your ability to draw the knife crossbody and cross draw. I mean, really sweet.
I think it'd be very easy to do. You and I kind of discussed that. I'm a big proponent of Baldric carry, especially for bigger blades. Okay, but you take this plate, this mounting plate, okay, because this is designed for right or left hand carry. That's the joy of this plate, okay. All you do is you put two extra, whatever you call these grommets or whatever, right here. So this looks like it's uniform. If you turn it this way, this would come off. And these two extra, holes, they're going to have the balance point right here. They'll come up a little bit, which is going to be really cool. Clip on your rifle sling, whatever you have, and you got this thing ready to deploy at any time. So it's an additional way to carry it, and I think you already had the foundation here.
It's already there. It's just literally two holes and two rivets and the things in place, and maybe a little oversized so that you could get like a carabiner.
A little oversized, right? Yes,
so,
yes.
Yep. And I mean, it's already there. So I mean, now let's just say you went out and bought this knife. You know, there are a lot of options that you could potentially go with to get yourself a cross draw, but you just bought this knife. You don't want to spend any more money. Well, I think we can do with what we've got here. So today, just a real quick video, real basic mod to this existing sheath that I think is going to give you the result you're looking for. Now, if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Alright, so as I mentioned, we're getting into this sheath mod here for the Work Tuff Gear Nomad. Now, the whole thing with a Baldric style carry is I pretty much need to get this plate rotated to the 90 degrees orientation here. Now, I've already done just a little bit of work to set this up, and as you look, I need to make some decisions. And so I'm going to remove this back plate. Now, this back plate is the factory back plate that comes with the sheath, and I do want to reuse this because the last thing I want to do is invest in another piece of gear to go onto this sheath system. So as I take this screw off here and removing the hardware, I am going to reuse the existing hardware and this plate. But the thing is, what I originally wanted to do was rotate this plate 90 degrees, and if you look, the holes don't exactly line up. So that means one of two things. I either need to drill the sheath or drill this back plate and put a rivet in there. Now, if you look at this, you'll notice that I've put a little mark. Well, that's exactly where this back plate is going to match up. And the other thing I did, you'll see, is there's a line. Well, once I mount this back plate and get it lined up with the holes, you'll see that there is some Kydex sticking out of the bottom. So just from the overall quality and craftsmanship perspective, what I thought I'd do is actually trim that up just a little bit. Now, you'll also notice if you look at this side, there is a little pencil mark there. Well, that would be if I decided to drill the plate. And in my opinion, it's a little more risky to drill the Kydex and pop in a rivet. The last thing I want to do is mess with the retention. I mean, there's no doubt that Work Tuff absolutely nails their sheaths. They get them absolutely perfect, and the last thing I want to do is mess with that. But I don't think there's too much risk in drilling this plate. Fact of the matter is I have plenty of room for that hole to be drilled in there, pop in a nice clean rivet, Then at that point, I can talk about removing these screws on this webbing and maybe attaching my shoulder strap onto this. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. First things first, I'm going to drill a hole in this plate, pop in a rivet, and I'll be good to go. So here I'm using 1/4-inch eyelets. I have a few different choices, but I decided that the 1/4-inch would be about right for me. So getting my 1/4-inch bit ready here. Now I'm just going to punch that real quick to set it, just so that my bit doesn't wander, and then I'll be ready to set my eyelet. So just getting that punch right in that perfect location. Just got to be a little bit careful there, just to get that to sit. Boom. Right where I want it. And now at this point, my drill bit shouldn't wander. I think I'm actually going to use a little pilot first, just to make sure I get it accurate. Okay, so now going with that 1/4-inch bit. Okay, nice and clean. That rivet will go perfectly inside here, and then I get it pressed on in my press. You'll see that's a nice snug fit. That's exactly what you want for a rivet. Perfectly in line. I line that up just about perfect there, and that'll do exactly what I need. So just going to press this down. Squaring it up. And that looks good. It's fit in nice. I'm just going to squash it down just a tiny bit more, and that'll be ready to go. So now with that rivet in place, basically this can be mounted 90 degrees. Now I do need to remove these because I'm going to replace this webbing with my own little setup so that I can get this hung in the Baldric style. Alright, so now moving forward, as I mentioned, just going to take these screws here, right off of here, and reuse this hardware. Very simple. I actually have more hardware than I need now, which is not a bad thing. So we will just remove this strap. Very simple. Okay. Now, at this point, I need to modify this potentially just a little bit more. I'm going to take this clip, turn it to the side, and check it out, but I can see already all the holes lining up perfectly now that I have that new rivet in place, so that's a good sign. Now, if you look at how this plate mounts up, it will pretty much sit very, very tight, and if I tighten it all the way down, it's not going to give this too much room to flex. So what I thought is I would put some spacers under there just to kind of even things out a little bit. So getting those spacers and the hardware into place, and then I'll continue to move on. And taking care of that there. That will work mighty nice. So the next thing to point out is that you can see there, now that this is in the sort of vertical position here, that's going to work well to help me establish my Baldric carry. But as I mentioned before, that Kydex sticking out of the bottom. So you can do a couple of things. Either leave it and call it good, or just sand that down. That way you end up with a nice flush mounted plate on the back. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm basically going to take a line, actually just grab a pencil, scribe that line right on there, and take it to my belt sander, clean it up, round off the edges, and that'll be a nice, smooth, clean looking installation there, which I like. So now this plate is dual purpose, working very well. Now for the Baldric Style Carry, what I really want to figure out is how I want this to hang. So basically I need to figure out that pivot point. Now this is not quite sitting exactly how I was hoping, but I think it'll do once I get the strap on there. And there's only one way to tell, and that's to kind of go with it and figure it out. So what I've opted to do is use this little piece of shock cord. Now this is just a little bit tight, but fits right through nicely. And what I'm going to do is make myself a nice little loop that I'm going to attach my sling to. And it's going to do a couple things. First, it's going to help with my dangle angle. Yep, the angle of the dangle is inversely proportional to the heat of the meat. Think about that one. That will help me with my Baldric style dangle with the shoulder strap. but it'll also just give it a little bit of flex and give. I mean, a nice heavy knife like this, that's going to be helpful. So that's what I'm going to do, just make a nice little loop here, fashion that into place, and that should work pretty well for me. All right, so getting that looped on there, just going to tighten this right down, get it really, really snug. That feels good. So that's going to be nice. Now I can trim these up. So just squaring these off there real clean. 1, 2. And now I'll just melt down the ends and get a good clean install here. That's going to look nice. Now you could use any color. I just happen to have the green. I mean, it's not that I really want the green on there. It's just what I got at the particular moment. But at this point, that's going to give me the start of my dangle there and hopefully get this oriented kind of in the right direction. And now for the bottom, I'm basically going to do the same thing. Now I'm thinking it's going to be the bottom rivet. I don't really know. I'm just kind of figuring this thing out. But let's just go for it. And I mean, no better way than just to try and figure it out. So again, same idea. Just getting a knot in here. Just going to set this on the bottom. And we'll hope for the best. And we'll attach this shoulder strap and see how it works. And so now I just have a very straightforward strap here. Just going to clip it right on, making sure I get it kind of straight. Now these do swivel, which is nice. And then connecting it there. And this will be my shoulder carry. Now, just at an initial glimpse, it's hard to say if this is going to land exactly how I need it. It does seem like it's going to hang down a little bit. I'd rather have just a little bit more vertical. So I may need to continue to play with this plate and cant it to get it to sit where I need to. And I can see already how I would do that. So as I mentioned, this is an experiment and I'm just kind of going through it first for all of you. So, so far, not terrible, but not quite right. I do want this to be a little more vertical for that cross draw Baldric style. Now the next thing I tried was taking the original plate, putting it back in its original orientation, putting a couple of these straps on here and trying to get it to stay more in that sort of upright position. Now unfortunately it didn't really work. The knife still wanted to sort of tip itself forward. So at this point I've made another modification. I'm going to try to adjust this a little bit and we'll see how it goes. So at this point I've managed to put together something that's fairly reasonable and meets my objective. Now again, the point of this Baldric style carry is to basically stay in the upright position. Now what I did was I again utilized that original base plate, but I had these straps. Now these straps are pretty much retention straps that you would put really around a knife to keep it inside the sheath. I had 2 of them and I've modified my strap. Now this is a different strap than the one I was originally using. I basically busted off the clips and then sanded down the flat part and threaded it right through that strap. Now that works out very well where it's nice and secure. This actually looks pretty good at this point. And the nice thing is when I put it on and get it into position, it actually stays pretty much how I'd like to keep it. So at this point, nice and easy to draw, no problem. Very simple. And that works out very well. Now, the other thing I can do, which I like, is actually carry it the opposite direction. So for me, where I really like shoulder carry, this actually works out pretty sweet where it's inverted. I can keep this nice and in front of me. I am not worried about this coming out. It has plenty good retention. So while I'm working and doing my chores around camp and I have nothing in the way, this is a perfect spot just to draw the knife, pull it out, do my work, and then just carefully get it back into the sheath. So again, nice and sturdy right in front of me, draw, back in the sheath. And the other thing this allows me to do is, say I go on the move and I can sling this around and put it right on my back, and it's in the vertical position, which is nice. So while I'm not looking at the knife to have it in the vertical position, it can't fall out and I don't need to worry about it. So I can go either way with this setup. It stays just like I like it. Either way, right hand or left hand carry working perfectly well, and at this point I think this is going to work very well for me. So alright guys, there you have it, a quick modification to my Work Tuff sheath. Now at the end of it all, this proved a couple of things. One, Joe and I were a little bit off in our original thoughts about taking this original plate, turning it into that sort of perpendicular position and using it for that Baldric carry. And two, I definitely did not need to install that additional rivet. So with a couple of straps and really just modifying this strap, at this point I can decide whether or not I want to use this sort of cheap flimsy strap or upgrade it. I mean, proof of concept is there. This definitely works. It works very well. It's perfectly comfortable. So I think for me what I'm going to do is get a nicer strap and then add one that has just a little bit of padding, keeps it on my shoulder, doesn't stress on the fabrics of my outerwear, and just gives me a good, comfortable carry and versatile ride. So alright guys, I hope you enjoyed what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.